What's going on, my people? Welcome back to another episode of the Stop the Count podcast. In this episode, I'll talk about what went down over the weekend in the UFC and boxing. First, talking about the UFC card and talking about TUF 30 winner Julianamiller. It has not looked good for TUF, as like I said, TUF 30 winner Julianamiller has now lost 2 fights in a row. And this went in possibly the worst way possible. She was just knocked out. Juliana had a decent start to the first round, but just couldn't sustain it through the whole round. And she was baited into a slugfest by Luanasantos, and she lost. But besides that, Luana looked great, a great flyweight prospect for the future. And just to mention someone I was originally going to talk about in my last video, but decided to scrap after his fight with Brady Heisted was cancelled, and that is damonblackshear. After showing a great ground game, he was able to get a twister submission, only the third ever in UFC history, joining Bryce Mitchell and the Korean Zombie as the only fighters to ever get this submission. And now for francismarshall versus Isaac Delegorian. What a performance from Isaac, controlling the fight on the ground from the start and landing some hard and vicious ground shots, ending the fight in the very first round. A truly dominant performance. Now for Josh Fremd versus Jamie Pickett. Josh was doing a great job in the grappling department. It was no Bo Nickel performance, but let's get one thing straight. There's only one Bo Nickel. Josh was able to lock in a couple submissions, but Pickett did a great job getting out of them. And on their feet, I wouldn't say Josh was amazing, but he did a decent job. And all that ultimately led to Josh pulling off the unanimous decision victory. For the main event, Vicente Luque versus Rafael dos Anjos. The first 3 rounds were really a great showing of both fighters' grappling game. I would say Luque was getting the better of Dos Anjos on the ground, but also on the feet. Dos Anjos looked tired from all the grappling. The lateral movement I thought would be important from him if he wanted to win this fight was really non-existent. He was staying still and standing in front of Luque. And Luque ended up getting the clear unanimous decision victory, just being able to zero out any advantage Dos Anjos had going into this fight. It could have been RDA's game plan or Luque's strength, but that doesn't take anything away from a great fight and a great win from Vicente Luque. And now for boxing, starting with the Trash Ass Matchroom main event. Anthonyjoshua versus Robert Helenius. I'm not going to get too deep into the glove situation that happened before the fight, but just to say a little, Robert's team was iffy about AJ's gloves due to them having a little padding, but the fight continued after both sides agreed to wear the same gloves. Now, I'm going to be completely honest. Anthonyjoshua is horrible. What happened to him is the definition of hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. Anthony still won this fight, but he looked terrible. His knockout came in the 7th round, a fight that could have ended earlier, but it didn't. And if you were to ask me right now if he was ready for a top heavyweight, my answer would be no. He shows no improvement and he just looks out of it. In my opinion, he needs to take actual time off, not just a couple weeks or months between camps, but maybe like a year or a year and a half to regroup and be a better Anthonyjoshua and try to get back to that old Anthonyjoshua that we all seen coming up through the ranks. For the Showtime card, starting with garyantuannerussell versus Kent Cruz. A showing of how dominant garyantuannerussell is. He's a beast. Getting a first round knockout shows he's built different. And it shows that he should be the name getting thrown in there to fight Rollies, not all these other fighters. Now for the vacant IBF bantamweight title fight between Emmanuelrodriguez versus Melvin Lopez. Rodriguez started the fight hot, landing really whatever he wanted. I would have liked to see more bodywork from the start, but it was still a great start from Rodriguez. Lopez was very slow, having to fight off his back foot mostly due to Rodriguez's pressure, and Lopez never seemed to really get into it. Rodriguez had pretty bad swelling over his right eye and was still able to get through it and had a great fight. I thought this fight was going to be great, but it was really just one-sided, with Rodriguez dominating Lopez and Lopez not doing anything. Rodriguez got the win. It was a very one-sided decision, especially after Rodriguez knocked down Lopez 3 times in the 12th round. What a great performance from Emmanuel Rodriguez. And now for the much-anticipated top-ranked card headlined by Emmanuel Navarrete versus Oscar Valdez for Navarrete's WBO junior lightweight title. First mentioning Raymond Muratalla had to pull out of his fight versus Diegotorres due to an injury. Hopefully everything is fine with Raymond, and hopefully he's able to get back in the ring soon. But now talking about the great prospects on the card, starting with Emilianovargas. Another great performance on an opponent who really wasn't going in there to box. He was just going in there to make things difficult, and that really backfired. Emiliano was able to get a great knockout in the second round. Now, for Richard Torrez Jr., Richard was coming back from injury, so I thought he was going to start this fight off slow. But oh, was I wrong. Richard came out hot, dropping his opponent with a vicious right hook and finishing the fight soon after, in the first round. And that makes 4 out of his 6 wins by first round knockout. And now for Lindolfodelgado. Lindolfo was really struggling at first, but once Lindolfo was able to settle in, his counterpunching ways really took over and took him to a different level. And it was going into the 7th round where Yair told his corner he was tired and didn't know how long he could last. And that's the moment I knew he lost. The fight continued, and Lindolfo just looked dominant to close out another unanimous decision victory. Let me know in the comments, what do you think of his performance, and is he ready for a step-up fight? Now for the main event, Emmanuel Navarrete versus Oscar Valdez for Navarrete's WBO junior lightweight title. What a fight. From the start, both fighters came out looking for the kill. In the first round, it looked as if Oscar was hurt, but he was able to stay in the fight, and Oscar was looking for body shots early, but he really strayed away from that towards the later rounds. Navarrete was just a tank, walking forward, catching Valdez, coming in. Honestly, Oscar was not boxing. He was just looking for one shot and was doing a decent job doing that, but that doesn't win you a fight. Coming straight to Navarrete, not working his way in, not doubling up on shots or throwing combos, it was really a bad game plan. In the middle rounds, I thought Oscar was doing a great job. Navarrete was fighting with a hurt right hand and not using it. He didn't use it for about 2 rounds. And it was in the same middle rounds when Navarrete looked tired. He was not doing much to start the rounds, but to end them, he was picking up the pace and throwing everything. It didn't matter if it landed or not. And it was towards the end of the middle rounds where Oscar's eye really started to look bad. It was swelling horribly. The last 3 rounds is what it came down to. And I would say the 10th round was very close. I personally had Oscar winning that round, but the last 2 rounds were Navarrete's rounds all the way. Just still finding that second win and letting everything go. I had the fight ending in a draw, 114-114. But like I said, the rounds were close. They could have gone either way. Do I think the cards were too wide? Honestly, I do. I don't think Oscar was dominated like many people think. This in no way takes away from the great performance given to us by Navarrete. And as for this fight being built up as Eric Morales versus Marco Antonio Barrera 2.0, there will never be a fight at that level. This was a good fight, and was it close to theirs? No. Nonetheless, who do you guys want to see Navarrete fight next, and is he on your pound for pound list? Let me know in the comments below. That'll be it for me. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and follow me on Twitter at StopTheCount10. See you later on this week as I talk about the upcoming fights that await us. See you then.